Alright, welcome back YouTube. Oberst here. Hope everybody's having a nice December as we're getting closer to Christmas. Getting closer to the holidays now. Anyway, alright, here we're looking at the Clemson. Happens to be one of my favorite American
司令は何しとんじゃ。なんか忙しそうだな。
American
少し
ships.
待ってやるか。
One of the things that's really great, it's the last American destroyer that has a fairly normal trajectory for the shells from its guns. Once you get into tier 5 with the Nicholas, you start to have that real high arc firing, where if you're firing it at anything out 10 out around 9, 10, 11 kilometers plus with your guns, it's like you're firing at the moon. The shells just go way too high, hang in the air way too long, and really tends to mess with your accuracy at long range. I've seen players that have been able to make the guns work at long range, but so far that still eludes me.
ご命令は司令。
It purely comes down to luck and just the rate of fire that you're putting out for me, that I can get shots at long range with the higher tier American ships right now. Although I love the rate of fire, and definitely if you're in a gun duel against another enemy destroyer, you want that high rate of fire, and the American destroyers have that in spades. But for me, my favorite American destroyer is the Clemson, which is the epitome of the flush deck, the old school flush deck U.S. destroyers. You don't see a flush deck again until you get up to the Farragut. Or not the Farragut, I'm sorry. Take that back. It's the... let's go look.
アトミラール、何事も
The Fletcher!
あまり
There
頑
we go.
張りすぎちゃダメよ。気分転換も大事なのよ。
Alright, hush. As you can see, I've got Aslan's mod pack, and I've got the Cancoli Admirals and the Cancoli voice pack going, and they've kind of made it a little annoying now. I mean, it was it was alright before, where you just had the voices in game, but now you get them talking randomly while you're in port as well, so it does get a bit annoying. I'm most probably going to turn it off eventually. But anyway, yes, the Fletcher, I'm sorry. Sucks getting old.
アトミラールさん、
I've
今日
most
の作
probably
戦を話してい
forgotten
きましょう。
I've most probably forgotten more about these ships than a lot of you guys even know about them these days. All you younger kids. But anyway, here we are with the Clemson, which definitely my favorite American destroyer right now. Currently, the main battery, I've only got an 8.6 kilometer range. Now, that may be one reason why I don't see the moon shots. I mean, when you play American cruisers now, like the Cleveland, and you play American destroyers, you know, you start to think, is this the United States Navy, or did NASA take it over? You know,
提督
see,
来ないのかしら。
even the Japanese agree with me. But anyway, yeah, maybe that's why. So when I finally get the skills on this captain up to where I can get long range, the advanced gunnery skill, who knows, maybe I'll start and see those long range shots from the Clemson as well. I don't know. But in the meantime, I like her the way she is. Alright, so we're in a tier 5 game, not bad at all. things that I really like about the American destroyers is that while their torpedo reload can take a little longer than the other countries, you have torpedo tubes on both sides of the ship, and that makes it very interesting. When you're closing in on a kill, you can actually fire a lot more,
カンコレ始まります。
get a lot more torpedoes off on your target. Now, since the enemy only has Russian destroyers, that means that we actually have the advantage in terms of our camouflage rating. So I can be a bit sneaky, get closer to the enemy before I'm spotted, and I should definitely have a drop on my two Russian counterparts on the enemy team. I like taking more of a central course. Even though we do have two carriers right now, neither one of them have launched their aircraft, so I'm going to try and get out there and get a spot. Looks like our cruisers have already spotted a Phoenix. And these four islands up here,
発見しちゃいました。
right here, this chain of islands, I like to use these islands to try and get in close. May not be able to do that because of the Phoenix there. And it doesn't help that I'm going to have to turn around. That guy is doing, but not even sure why he would have charged like that with a cruiser, but you can bet he's most probably yelling at his team right now that they didn't support him. Don't you just love that when somebody decides to do something? Cruiser down. So it looks like our Phoenix decided to be a little stupid as well, and he's charging along.
びっくりしたのです。 華麗 方じゃない。誰？大丈夫になる。この戦いが終わったらもういい白いインさんと一緒に承りましたよ。私どういうのそれって嬉しいけどぽいぽいぽいぽい悪い気持ちじゃないわね。また頑張ります。
It looks like that one torpedo didn't get a chance to arm. I could be wrong, but it looks like that last torpedo did not get a chance to arm at all.
Admiral 作戦は
終了だ。
Now, I'm sure there's going to be destroyer players that are going to look at this and go, "You just played your ship completely wrong. You should have been using your guns all the time, just like the Russian boats. And you shouldn't have bothered using torpedoes." And the thing is that, as I have said in my previous video with the Gremyash, where I was using the Gremyash and I'm talking about the Russian boats, if you take the Russian destroyers, especially the lower mid to mid-tier boats, and especially with the mid-tier boats like the Gnevny, and even the Ognavoy at tier 6, and if you can learn how to use the maps to your advantage, how to be able to read what the enemy players are doing, watching the map, watching where they're going, seeing who they're focusing on, things like that. If you can really learn to read what is happening in the game, watching what the opposing team is doing, where they're at, are they in relation to islands, things like that, then, and you take that and take the Russian destroyers and use them effectively, not just with their guns, but learn how to get in there into torpedo range and be able to use your torpedoes effectively on enemy targets. If you can do that with Russian boats, it'll make your gameplay with American destroyers, just like the Clemson here, that much better. The same thing with your Japanese boats. Even though the Japanese boats, you really should stay out of your visual range of enemy ships, and that you still want to learn to get in there closer for your torpedoes to be effective. Because one thing I'm starting to see, especially as you get into higher tier games, where yeah, I've got the Fubuki at tier 8. I've got 15-kilometer torpedoes. You wouldn't believe the number of times that I've fired torpedoes, watched them go out, and the enemy players the player skill at tier 8 is such that for the most part battleships and cruisers will avoid your torpedoes. So long as a player is paying any kind of attention to what is going on around him, especially in a high tier game, you will find that they'll get the torpedo warning and they'll simply turn and they'll out-turn your torpedoes. And that's one of the reasons why I go with learning to fire my torpedoes at closer ranges, where I'm giving the enemy less opportunity. It's like, yes, they know the torpedoes are coming. They know I'm going to launch them. But I've even planned that, hey, if they're going to turn one way or turn the other way, my torpedoes are still going to hit them. And that's the thing. To be a successful destroyer player, my personal belief is you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt your tactics to the situation that's going on in the game. Sometimes you may not get to use your torpedoes. You may have to play as a gunboat and just go all guns out and do what you can. But you need to be able to look at what's going on, and if you see an opportunity develop to where you can get in and really start messing with the enemy team, you got to take it. I mean, that's how a lot of battles have been fought in real life. That they're gambles. I mean, you could look, plenty of examples even in American history. You can take Lee and Jackson at Chancellorsville as an example. Lee and Jackson did something that totally went against the book. when it came to fighting battles, land battles, during the American Civil War. They split their army, and the Confederate army was already outnumbered. And yet Lee and Jackson decided to split their army, and they destroyed a numerically superior force under General Hooker at the Battle of Chancellorsville. They thought outside of the box. Instead of doing what people expected, they did what was unexpected, and it won them a victory. And that's honestly how you have to look at things when you play these games, be it World of Tanks or be it World of Warships. Sometimes you got to think outside the box. It's better to do something the enemy doesn't expect you to do. Now, that doesn't mean go rush out like that Phoenix did at the beginning of the game and just charge across the map and, you know, waste a perfectly good vessel like that. That was kind of sad to watch, but you definitely want to try to use what's available to you in terms of whatever map you're playing on. You want to fight to your vessel's strengths. And in this case, I knew that I had no Japanese destroyers to worry about, so I could take a much more aggressive line, knowing that if I spotted anybody, I'd be able to turn and get out of dodge before they could spot me. Except with the aircraft, of course. Aircraft are always a pain in the butt. But anyway, there you go. There's that. That was the very first game. Didn't have to go and play a bunch of different games to find a good match. This was the very first match right after talking to you in the harbor with the Clemson, and this is the kind of result you can get. You just have to watch what's going on and take advantage of it. And number one, top scoring guy, 5 kills. Detailed report, I did 76,000 points of damage with my torpedoes. I did another almost 12,000 points of damage with HE shells. I did get a fire, but it was put out apparently. And I did get 4 flooding, do some flooding damage for another 6,000 points of flooding damage. So we're looking at about 90. We're looking at 87, 88, just around 94,000 in damage. Tier 4 ship, Tier 5 game. Good game. That was a good game. Alright guys, well, that's it for this video on the Clemson Tier 4 American destroyer, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and take care everybody. I'll talk to you again in the next video. Battle on.
あとミラールさん、今日の